Chapter 13. It turned out that although I had a high fever and fell asleep for nearly a week, I didn't burn my brain. What I saw that day was indeed Grandma. It turned out to be the unexpected surprise my mother said before. I looked at Grandma with a happy smile. Grandma shook my arm and smiled comfortably. I slowly lowered my head and avoided Sue's concerned eyes next to me. It's time to forget, I said to myself. Forget the warm embrace and the hunting windbreaker. Sue quickly left Japan again. I didn't ask him where he went. I never mentioned the night of the reception. I used to go to the door of the study. Everything is over. Even if not, there will eventually be a day in the past. Mom's wedding is said to be very grand. The other party is a jebel of a famous electronics enterprise, and he treats mother like a jewel. After marriage, my mother moved out. Her marriage seemed to be very happy until I left Japan. I live with my grandma, and life is very calm. I go to school on time every day. Follow the rules at school and didn't deliberately walk alone. When setting up the stage and installing lamps, I will move and lift them with boys, which was attracting the eyes of teachers and classmates. When there is no class or activity, I will go home obediently. Under Grandma care, I have never been to nightclub. At least on the surface, I have become recognized as a good student, good child and a standard lady. But I know that there is a black hole in my heart. Bottomless. Suck all my rebellion, liveliness, youth and longing. I just continue to live. Moreover, I've had lost a good sleep since then. I often woke up sweating in the dark, and my mother's crisp and delicate laughter echoed in my ears. One string after another, one string after another. I thought I would have lived like this all the time. But life is really more dramatic than movies. This simple and peaceful state of life lasted for about 2 years. During this period, Sue also came twice, and every time he stayed very short. As always, I still like to hold Sue's neck and bury my face in his neck. It's just that I'm in a big different mood. Every time I am deeply greedy for that warm embrace, while blaming myself, I also have a sad thought, oh, it's only once a year, and I don't know when the next hug will be. When I was in the 2nd grade, Grandma suddenly proposed to return to China. No matter how my mother and I tried to hold her, my grandma insisted on leaving. Mom stopped insisting. Watching my grandmother packing her luggage one by one, the sudden fear took my breath away, so I decided to go with my grandma. Mom didn't object this time. Grandma rubbed my hair again and again, and finally nodded. I went through the suspension procedures. In March 1999, we left Japan together and returned to Shanghai. I was just 20 years old that day, and saw the first rain in the city in the corner garden. Petal rain of cherry blossoms. It feels so different from Tokyo. People, buildings, streets, roads and vehicles are all different. The smell in the air is also different. Even the blooming cherry blossoms and falling petals are subtle. I suddenly became happy. Life will be different in the future. I want to start a new life. The days to come will be colorful. I didn't continue to study, but soon found a job to do packaging planning in a well-known advertising agency. In addition to my surprise, I was a little complacent. Although I didn't count as A-class background, it seemed that I was still a little talented. Otherwise, so many people applied for the interview, why would I have won the first place? But when I entered the company, I found that my colleagues didn't seem to like me much, especially an enchanting beauty, who simply looked for trouble from time to time. This beautiful woman is Mai. It took me a long time to know that I could enter this company with nothing to do with my strength. The boss of this company is Sue's business friend. However, I didn't know at that time. I only felt that the people here were really bullying, simply more generous, less planning and more diligent. Because I am keen to do things, I never push over time, and I am not lazy. Even the hardship of installing and dismantling the platform, I always comes in person, but to be honest, it is impeccable. After 3 or more months, everyone's attitude has eased. Only my is always salty. Anyway, I don't care about estrangement. Just do your part well. The real sympathetic to each other was a temporary case received in August of that year. Help a French jewelry company promote. Originally, they had an appointment with another company, but when the company signed the agreement in the temporary exchange of the business plan, it suddenly proposed to add a code. Obviously, it was determined that the other party had booked a venue for promotion before it was too late to change advertising agents. As a result, the French immediately turned around in anger and introduced our company. Time was urgent. The whole group of us went through 3 or 4 all-nights to take out several sets of business plans and hand them in. After reading them, the French expressed great satisfaction and chose one of them and asked them to be all in place within a week. When we made the plan, everyone worked very hard. In the end, only me, and 2 other colleagues were left, and the rest fell to the ground and all of them met with Zhou Gong in the conference room. Except for the other 2 strong male colleagues, my and I seem to be unrelated to the secret competition. The exhibition hall area of the press conference is as large as 4 football fields. Different from the general jewelry display, it is divided into 4 themed exhibition areas, including the development history of jewelry, classicism style, Art Nouveau line, and naturalism style. Different exhibition areas naturally have different booth designs and lighting effects, which are required to show the appearance of jewelry culture in various periods hidden in the profound time corridor. At first, I thought that it could be arranged by a professional venue design company. Unexpectedly, the French were so picky, and many light source structures were already in place, but they were overturned and reworked. After 2 days, almost nothing was accomplished. Seeing that the time was getting tighter and tighter, my and other colleagues decided to settle the board and lodging at the construction site, catching up with the progress day and night. Everyone had to take turns resting, sleeping only 2 or 3 hours at a time, and had to get up to replace other colleagues. The work is more specific to the light distance of each group of crystal showcase spotlights, partitions and slides, and it is very hard work. Because I have learned stage lighting myself, I have to work with professionals to design the rotation trajectory of the light position angle on the computer. During wiring installation and debugging, I climbed up and down with dozens of kilograms of equipment on my back. My usually communicates with me on the ground with a walkie-talkie, exchanging effects and opinions. The exhibition hall was not completed until the morning of the promotion conference, and the effect of the test lights was amazing. The French who came to check couldn't help applauding. My and I glanced at each other, and the dark circles under our eyes caught up with the most avant-garde smoky makeup of the models at Dior's latest fashion show in Paris. The 2 of us slipped out of the side door at the same time. Suddenly, my opened her mouth, and her voice was a little hoarse. "Go and drink soy milk." I nodded cheerily. When the 2 of us walked out of the pavilion shoulder to shoulder, we met another group of colleagues, and everyone's chins hardly fell off. My rolled her eyes and said roughly, "Haven't you seen enough?" Then we laughed and left. Since then, we become good friend. Living like this, I hardly had time to accompany my grandma, and Sue gradually faded out of my stage. Although I still can't sleep well, I don't have nightmares. I'm probably too busy. Maybe I subconsciously want to be busy. In this way, there is not much time to think about it. I ignored grandma's change. She gradually became thinner, but I didn't notice it at all. I can never forgive myself for this. One day, when I returned home tiredly from an all-night shift, I found that my grandma was missing. My neighbor Aunt Zhao told me that my grandma fainted at home last night and had been sent to the hospital. Aunt Zhao looked at me reproachfully and said, "Luckily, she fainted at the door." Fortunately, when everyone got off work in the evening, if the old lady had an accident at home alone in the middle of the night, the consequences would be really unimaginable. I rushed to the hospital and learned that Grandma had advanced liver cancer. No wonder Grandma insists on coming back. No wonder my mother will allow me to abandon school and return together. Like 1,000 arrows pierced through my heart, I lay on my grandma's knees without making a sound. Grandma comforted me by patting my back lightly. Her condition deteriorated rapidly, but Grandma insisted on refusing chemotherapy. Anyway, it was better for me to leave as decently. Why do I have to get scorched hair loss? I just want to save some time to eat more dishes and see more scenery. I want to resign and concentrate on her, but Grandma doesn't allow it. She just say that she didn't want to change anything, she is more comfortable like this. I burst into tears, and finally tried to nod with a smile. I still go to work and get off work, but I try not to work overtime and accompany my grandma when I have time. 3 months passed all of a sudden. Grandma couldn't survive until Christmas and left me forever in early December. I don't know why I couldn't cry. My heart seemed to have been gouged out, and my throat seemed to be stuffed with a big stone. Even if you drink a mouthful of water, you feel pain and it's difficult to swallow. Mom came over from Japan, and she didn't cry either. Haha, our mother and daughter are really similar. I looked at my mother's sad and empty face. Mom wanted to hug me, but I gently avoided it, and she didn't force it anymore. My mother asked me, "Nan, do you want to go back with Mom? You have to continue studying." I shook my head blankly. Mom sighed, "Okay, you can leave by yourself. I'll send someone to pick you up later." I still didn't talk. Mom soon returned to Tokyo. The company gave me a month off. My sleep became worse, and I often couldn't sleep at all during nighttime. So I sat in front of the window all night, with the sapphire earrings that Grandma often wears in my left hand and the sapphire cufflinks in my right hand. It took a week after another. My sometimes came to see me. She didn't talk to me. She just brought raw and cooked food materials every time. As soon as she entered the kitchen, it took 2 or 3 hours. It's rare, she is the most fashionable and trendy girl who actually cooks good dishes. Often conjures up a table of good dishes and soups. Seeing her working so hard and worrying about me, I had to work hard to eat even if I had no appetite. I suffered like this for more than half a month, and my whole body was so thin that I almost fell out of shape. Another sleepless morning, I was sitting by the window again in daze, when someone knocked on the door, hurriedly and restrained, 3 times, then one stop, 3 times again. It wouldn't be my, she didn't knock on the door like that, and she would call me before she came. My reaction has been a little dull recently, and it took me a long time to remember to open the door. At this time, some neighbors have opened the door to check, and the sound insulation of this old-fashioned house was not good. I hurriedly opened the door and greeted my neighbors while looking up to see who it was. Without time to react, I was already embraced by a pair of powerful arms. Just as I was about to struggle, I suddenly smelled the familiar smell of cologne, and how familiar this embrace was. I subconsciously reached out to hug the other party's shoulders and buried my face in the warm neck. My palms are open, and the earrings and cufflinks fell to the ground. Sue's voice trembled slightly, "My little Ruth. I'm late. I'm sorry. Shall we go to Paris? Just the 2 of us. Shall we go to Paris together?" I was speechless and could only nod and nod again. Life is so hard, I don't care about tomorrow. I just want now. End of chapter 13.